One thing that's really popped up for me since I've been doing this podcast and talking to a lot of, functional practitioners like yourself, it just was like a huge, just aha moment for me, like just siren, just screaming in my head is antibiotics. And just the amount of antibiotics used to the point where the CDC has come out and said, stop giving antibiotics. Like, I forget the percentage, I have it written down somewhere, but it's like, I don't know, like 70 or 80% are just completely inappropriate, and doctors pass them out like candy. And not only do you have this issue of antibiotic resistance, I think that's incredibly important, but I think you also have this other huge problem where these antibiotics, and we're giving them to kids like 3, 4, 5 years old. I mean, you're just completely changing the biochemistry of somebody's gut, which, like you said, like Hippocrates said, like this is where disease begins. This is where all the problems start. This is where health starts. And the fact that we just so cavalierly just give these things out for every problem. And it's almost like they just use it because they're like, how can I make this person shut up? Put this in your mouth, suck it down, and I won't see you again for 6 weeks until you come back with another problem, which will probably be SIBO or, who knows.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the way I always describe it, right? We focus on your microbiome, which is the 3 to 5 pounds of bacteria that live on the inside of your large intestine. The majority of antibiotics, where do we put them? In a tube that has 5 pounds of bacteria in it, right? So taking antibiotics just one time ever can wipe out 1/3 to 1/2 of your good bacteria. And going further on the microbiome, my favorite analogy is thinking of it as your own garden, right? And in that analogy, probiotics are the plants of your garden. So that's the lactobacillus, bifidobacterium, enterococcus, the good bacteria. What happens in your garden at home when you don't take care of it is weeds grow. Right? If you spray it with a bunch of glyphosate, most of it's going to die. Well, taking an antibiotic is basically like spraying your garden with a bunch of glyphosate or some other kind of weed killer. And then we're being exposed to viruses, parasites, bacteria all the time. And then let's say you're not making enough stomach acid. Your body doesn't shut down those bacteria. They're passing through your large intestine, and they see all this fertile soil and they're like, oh, wow, let's set up shop here. And then they take over. And the bad part is most people don't get like symptoms from dysbiosis, right? It'll present down the road as eczema or as rheumatoid arthritis or as headaches or you don't know until it's too late, which is one of my hopes, is that at some point, like a stool test becomes part of like a yearly well check, right? That we look at your microbe instead of doing like a CBC and a CMP, like let's do a stool analysis. Because a lot of times when I do one, people, we get back dysbiosis, SIBO, whatever. And people are like, well, when did this happen? I'm like, well, you were born premature. You spent 2 weeks in the NICU where every baby's getting loaded with antibiotics. It could have started then. You were 2, you were getting ear infections all the time. You were getting antibiotics a few times a year. Could have been then. And my answer is I have no clue. This could have started a month ago. This could have started 30 years ago. If we started doing more, if people had that more of a baseline, we'd have a better idea of like, hey, when did things go wrong?